Taoiseach, at the Business Committee, a number of opposition parties requested that Minister Eamon Ryan come in before us and make a statement on the absence of a transparent public appointment process for the members of the Climate Council. Now, as Taoiseach, you utterly failed in your responsibilities to deal with Fine Gael and the Catherine Sapone affair. Here we are again. You're repeatedly refusing to demand that the Minister, Eamon Ryan, come in before this House and explain why there was no transparent public appointment process for members, and please don't rhyme off their CVs again. Nobody's questioning their skills or capacity. It's the lack of a transparent appointment process which brings them into disrepute, and that's utterly wrong and unfair to the members of this Council. I also would say this Council has a responsibility to hold government to account independently, and again, you bring that into disrepute by the failure of a proper process.
Deputy Healy-Rae.
In advance of this Sunday's protest, a family farm protest about farm incomes, it is extremely disappointing that you and the Minister for Agriculture have failed again, despite calls from people like Deputy Michael Collins and others in our group that have sought a debate in this House on the national herd. You've brought a new word into the language of the stabilisation of the herd. More gobbledygook. What you mean is the cut in the national herd. Why would you not call it as it is? People are sick to death of this word, stabilisation of the national herd. On one hand, you and your minister have said, well, agriculture is the cause of the problem, and at the same time then you won't admit that your solution that you're proposing, you and your fellow colleagues in the Greens and in Fine Gael, is a cut in the national herd, which is a direct attack on family farm incomes. That's why thousands of people are going to come to Dublin on Sunday. Will you be there to listen to them and to hear what they have to say?
Anybody else before we go to the Taoiseach? No. Taoiseach.
First of all, in relation to Deputy McLaughlin, I find it difficult to the Chair to accept the bona fides of your proposition. I don't think you're interested in transparency at all. I think you gave the game away there. You said you don't. I'm not supposed to recite the CVs of these people because it doesn't matter whether they're qualified or not. It seems to be your implication. And government. So what? Sorry, with the greatest respect, you have never observed process when you're in government yourself. When it comes to appointing people, it is true. Chapter and verse, if you want to go through all the appointments you guys make, and all of them have the. All of them have the unusual coincidence of being party colleagues in relation to your thing. I think the fact that people are qualified is very important, and government has decided. Government has decided in respect of these members of the Climate Council, and that is the process, by the way. Government is entitled to make decisions in respect of appointing people to very important. That's why governments are elected in the first instance. I just genuinely think what you're really about is undermining the government at every chance you can get, and you are endeavouring to undermine the individuals. So you say ignore their qualifications, but their qualifications are important because they give the rationale for their appointment to the Climate Change Council. That's why I itemised them last week for you. You obviously didn't like being told how qualified they were.
Not putting the question.
No, in terms of Deputy Healy-Rae.
You nearly forgot about family farms. You let the cat out of the bag there. You think a lot about agriculture.
The cat's an essential part of the family farm, as you know. But in any event, can I just say, Minister McConalogue has travelled to almost every mart in the country. He has met farmers straight up. People who might agree with him, people who might disagree with him. And the feedback we have received is that people have admired his honesty, his forthrightness, and his ability to be accessible to farmers the length and breadth of this country. And, okay, he won't, sort of, how would I put it, he's not going to shout out loud and so on, like perhaps it can be your one from time to time in terms of, you know, making colourful phrases and so on like that. But he is sincere about the issue of making sure we have sustainable farming into the future. That's the correct approach to take. And I think he is, you know, in terms of the next decade, in terms of how we position food production in this country that manages to reduce the carbon emissions. I think we've created a roadmap now for climate change and for sustainable farming that makes sense. I'm not clear on your position in terms of climate change at all. I know some people in the Rural Alliance seem to be against the very concept of climate change seem to be in a climate denial. I'm not saying you, but I'm saying others in your group do not believe in the climate change.
But I live in the real world.
view.
Why are
What is
thousands
the
of
real world?
people?
The real world is the world
Why
of
are
climate change.
thousands of people coming to Dublin on Sunday? Why?
Because
Why? Because they're worried.
no issue with people being worried, but I can assure you we need to be balanced in terms of how we comment on it as well, and not be given to sloganeering and making assertions that are not true.
All right,
I've seen all your presentations on it.
Thank you. Taoiseach, now put in the question. The question is that the proposed arrangements for this week's business be agreed to. Not agreed. Shakti atar hevn tarshkan abradis ta. Shiv shatana gan abradis neil. Stolim kul kestrit. I believe the question is carried. Vote all.